Allyson, what do you believe has triggered these attacks?
Well, Bev, it's been an incredibly tense couple of months in this part of the Middle East. We have seen an increasing number of terrorism-related attacks within Israel, attacks on civilians that have led to several people being killed. And as a result of that, there's been a massive crackdown in the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank, military raids, military operations that have also seen a number of Palestinians killed. So it's been an escalating situation that we've seen evolving over the last few months. In fact, the reports are that this has been the deadliest year for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, and that it's certainly been one of the most tense and dangerous times here in Jerusalem and across Greater Israel. What makes this attack different, according to Israeli authorities, is that it seems to be more of a coordinated instance. So we had a bomb that went off at about 7:05 a.m. in a very busy thoroughfare, one of Jerusalem's busiest bus stations, and then about half an hour later, another second bomb was detonated. Israeli authorities say that it's this sort of coordination that they believe is an escalation in the sort of attacks that have been seen, no longer lone wolf attacks, stabbings, ram raids. They're the sort of things we've been seeing over the last few months, but this kind of coordination, they say, signals a real escalation for them. The bombs were packed with nails to cause maximum damage. And Bev, it's pretty important to note that these sort of bomb attacks were last seen here around the start of the Second Intifada, the second uprising that was in the early 2000s. So there is a lot of commentary and comparisons being drawn about whether or not this is going to escalate into that sort of an affront, an intifada sort of escalation.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, Allyson, and it is interesting because, of course, there's been so much political instability, and this most recent poll has really seen a further push to the right. Do you think there could be some concern that this is time now to press, for the Palestinians, the people in the West Bank, to press their case to a degree to an increasingly conservative Israel?
Well, increasingly from Palestinians, we're hearing dissatisfaction with their leadership, the Palestinian authorities. So there's certainly a sense of rising resistance within the West Bank, number of groups and factions that are taking up arms because they're feeling dissatisfied with their leadership, coupled with what you just mentioned, the incoming change of government. Benjamin Netanyahu, who is going to be returning to the top job in his third tilt as the Prime Minister. He's currently trying to sort out his cabinet because it's going to be a coalition of different groups and quite different competing organisations and ideologies as well. And one of the big concerns that is being negotiated at the moment is where Benjamin Netanyahu will place some very ultra-right-wing nationalists, people who have called for the eradication of Arabs from this part of the world, people who have been accused of inciting violence and inciting attacks and racism towards Palestinians. They are vying, those sort of people are vying for some crucial security positions, including the public security portfolio, which would rule the operations in the West Bank. So there's a lot of scrutiny on how Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be able to form his coalition. So far, those negotiations haven't actually come to fruition yet. So Israel's still in a little bit of a state of limbo as to whether or not a government will actually be formed and who will go into what sort of government positions. But it's certainly adding to the tense atmosphere here, feeling like it's kind of on a precipice of where things could go, particularly with the security situation.
And of course, critical in that region is Iran. We know there's so much tension there at the moment, and these deadly riots. The UN Human Rights meeting has just concluded. You've been monitoring that. What came out of it of any substance?
Bev, I'm still getting information through on the results of that, but we did see some quite strong condemnation of the actions of Iran. We heard from the High Commissioner there saying that 340 people have been killed, including at least 40 of them children. They cited at least 15,000 people had been arrested just during peaceful demonstrations, and there was a lot of support for this recommendation to launch a fact-finding mission to try and hold Iran accountable for these alleged human rights abuses. Australia also voiced its support for such a resolution. There were some notable dissenters and oppositions to this, including Cuba and China and Belarus, and unsurprisingly, Iran itself, who said that this special meeting that had been called at the behest of Germany and Iceland was essentially a politically motivated campaign by the West. They called it disgraceful and appalling, and said that it was an abuse of power to try and interfere in their sovereignty. And certainly there were other countries and other member states who backed Iran's position on that as well.
Allyson, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.